started. I've already briefly introduced myself. As I said, my name is Eileen Harris, and I serve as the Executive Director for the Center. I've been here with the Center since 2017, and it's been a real delight and a joy to work with the Alabama Supreme Court Commission on Dispute Resolution and all the neutrals that are registered with the Center, and to participate in various CLE programs throughout the state. I'm joined today by Jimmy Walter, who is my co-presenter. Jimmy, would you mind telling folks a little bit about yourself?
Certainly. Thank you, Eileen. Good afternoon, everyone, and I appreciate everybody participating in this program. My name is Jimmy Walter. I'm an attorney with the Capel Howard firm in Montgomery. My practice over the years has primarily been in the commercial litigation area, but I've been an active mediator for approximately 10 years, and I have also served as an arbitrator for the American Arbitration Association since 2014.
And we're just so delighted that you're here to join us, Jimmy. And for those of you who don't know, Jimmy serves on our commission, and we're grateful that he is serving in that capacity. So what we hope to talk with you about today is to kind of give you a brief history about ADR in the state, and we're going to share with you some data that we've been collecting since 1997 and talk about some trends. And we also want to highlight that this month we also celebrate Pro Bono Month at the Alabama State Bar. Our registered neutrals give pro bono time, and we have some pro bono programs that you may or may not be aware of, so we're going to share some information about that with you as well. And because Jimmy has such a great background and diversity in mediation and arbitration, he'll be able to talk with us some more about arbitration. And then we're going to share with you some resources that you can find available at the Alabama Center for Dispute Resolution's website. In the early 1990s, the president of the Alabama State Bar created a task force on ADR, and it was at the suggestion of the task force in 1992 that the Alabama Supreme Court adopted an amendment to Rule 16 of the Alabama Rules of Civil Procedure, which provides that after a civil action's been filed, the parties could consider the voluntary use by all parties of extrajudicial proceedings to resolve their disputes. And the purpose of that amendment was to encourage early resolution of pending litigation through voluntary ADR methods. And also at that time, the recommendation of the task force, the Alabama Supreme Court adopted the Alabama Civil Court Mediation Rules for implementing mediation as an acceptable and effective ADR method. It was also in 1994 that the Alabama Supreme Court created the Alabama Supreme Court Commission on Dispute Resolution. Our commission is very diverse and is comprised of members appointed by the Alabama State Bar, the Alabama Association for Justice, district court judges, circuit court judges, the Alabama Court of Civil Appeals, the Alabama Supreme Court, the governor, the Senate Pro Tem, and the Speaker of the House, as well as Alabama defense lawyers, Alabama lawyers, and we have members at large. The commission works to promote mediation in trial and appellate courts through the use of private and volunteer mediators. They also promote peer mediation in school systems and promote community-based mediation programs and also among state agencies. If you joined us yesterday, you got to hear about the Alabama Department of Labor's Workers' Comp Division Ombudsman program, which is a free service. The commission develops qualification criteria and standards of conduct for mediators, and as well as arbitrators. We draft court rules for consideration and address funding for implementation of ADR programs throughout the state. The commission also does receive complaints against registered mediators and arbitrators, and when those come in, they're referred to the commission. The commission also is available in case somebody wants to ask for an opinion on ethical issues. Now, the Alabama Center for Dispute Resolution was also established in 1994 by the same Supreme Court order as the commission. The center is formed, believe it or not, as a 501c3 nonprofit organization, and we operate as the state office for dispute resolution, and we are the administrative arm for the commission. The executive director also serves as the commission's secretary. So we provide ADR education and training, publications, and programs. We maintain the mediator, arbitrator, and private judge rosters. We assist the courts and associations and state agencies, businesses and law schools and universities, and really the public on all areas of alternative dispute resolution. And one of the important things that we also do is that we keep statistics on ADR activity in the state of Alabama. We also track not only court, but also private mediation statistics, arbitration, and private judging stats, as well as volunteer court mediation programs. You can find more information about that on our website, which is located at alabamaadr.org. We like to think that our website is user-friendly and the headings are customer-oriented. I just wanted to show you and share with you the statistics that we had on our website from 2019. We had over 11,500 users, and 90% of those were new users, and you can see the number of page views as well as the number of sessions. Our site is very active and integrated. You can search for a mediator, an arbitrator, or private judge online. For the public, they can learn more about ADR programs across the state, as well as our pro bono services. And as I mentioned before, the center collects data and statistics. Every year when our registered neutrals renew their registration with the center, they complete an evaluation. And so we're going to share some of those statistics with you as well. But we also collect data on the pro bono efforts of our our registered mediators. And Jimmy, with that, I'm going to go ahead and hand it off to you.
Thank you, Eileen. Just as an introduction to the statistics that we're going to be reviewing, the mediation and arbitration statistics are derived from the annual surveys that are completed by mediators and arbitrators registered with the Alabama Center for Dispute Resolution. Over the past 5 years, a little bit over 50% of the registered mediators and arbitrators completed the annual survey. While the statistics that we're going to be reviewing provide us valuable information as far as trends are concerned, they certainly do not represent all of the mediations or arbitrations that have taken place in Alabama over the last 20 years or so. Only those mediations and arbitrations that were reported in the annual surveys. As depicted in the chart that you have in front of you, the number of reported mediations has fluctuated during the 22-year period from as few as approximately 2,500 mediations in 1997 to a high of approximately 8,000 mediations in 2001, which not coincidentally saw our highest survey return rate. We had an 89% return rate that year, which at least in part accounts for the high number of mediations reported in that year. During the last 10-year period, from 2009 through 2019, the number of reported mediations has ebbed and flowed from a high of 4,900 in 2012. In that year, we had a 65% survey return rate to a low of approximately 3,400 mediations in 2019. And there was a 50% survey return rate in 2019. There are a number of possible reasons for the recent decline in the reported number of mediations other than the survey return percentages. First of all, across the state, there has been a general decrease in the number of civil case filings in Alabama courts, both with respect to general civil cases and domestic relations cases. So one would expect with fewer cases being filed, there would be fewer mediations arising from those cases. Furthermore, there's at least a perception that plaintiffs' attorneys are settling cases quickly with insurance adjusters in recent years prior to the need for mediation. But the bottom line that I take from these statistics is that we know that well over 4,000 mediations on the average take place in Alabama each year, and that based upon the historical reported percentages, 76% of the cases that are mediated in Alabama result in a settlement, which is certainly a great service both for the parties and for our courts. Eileen, if you could go to the next slide, please. The next slide shows civil mediations excluding domestic relations from 2015 through this past year, 2019. Most of the mediated cases in Alabama involved civil cases. As you can see from the chart, during 2015, there were 3,177 cases mediated, with 1,346 of those being court ordered. So approximately a third of the mediated cases were court ordered. The settlement rate was approximately 79% in that year. While the number of reported civil cases mediated declined after 2015, the settlement rate still ranged from 68% to 77%, and which again is an excellent settlement rate. Mediators responding to the 2019 annual survey reported 449 pro bono hours devoted during that year, which was a great service to the public and the courts. Eileen, if you could go to the next slide. Thank you. With respect to domestic relations cases during the 2015 to 2019 period, as you can see from the chart, there has been an increase since 2015 in the number of domestic relations family mediations. We went from 783 cases reported in 2015 to 1,071 cases reported during 2018. As you see from the chart, most of the domestic relations mediations are court ordered, and the settlement rate in 2019 for domestic relations mediations was 79%, and there were 538 domestic relation pro bono hours devoted by registered mediators during 2019, which was a great service not only to the domestic relations courts, but also to families who are going through domestic relations issues and allowing them to resolve those disputes without the necessity of the court doing so. Eileen, if you go to the next slide. Thank you. Mediators also assist parties pre-litigation. Mediators reported that approximately 200 disputes were settled through mediation each year from 2015 through 2019 before those disputes ripened into court action. Again, there was a high settlement rate in those disputes that were settled without court action, 81% in 2019, and also there were significant mediator pro bono hours devoted to non-court mediation. Turning to arbitration, excuse me. At the end of 2019, there were 65 registered arbitrators with the Alabama Center for Dispute Resolution. Those arbitrators reported arbitrating 83 cases, of which 15 were court-ordered. Approximately 1/4 of the arbitrations in 2019 were consumer arbitrations, and another 20 to 25% of the arbitrations were labor and employment arbitrations. Construction arbitrations accounted for approximately 10% of the total arbitrations in 2019, and also arbitrations involving the Alabama Medical Liability Act accounted for 8% of the arbitrations. The Alabama Center for Dispute Resolution changed the way it was collecting data on arbitrations beginning in 2018 to provide more definitive areas of reporting, although data collection has varied over the years. In general, there has been an upward trend in arbitrations over the past 10 years, led by increases in consumer arbitrations, labor and employment arbitrations, and various commercial arbitrations. The slide that you have in front of you shows the 2018-2019 arbitration comparison to give you an idea of the various types of cases that are being arbitrated in Alabama. Again, we see that consumer, commercial, and labor and employment arbitrations were the most widely reported in 2018 and 2019, but there were a variety of different types of disputes arbitrated based upon the survey results. And I would just mention from my personal experience, I remember back 10 or 15 years ago when arbitration was really starting to come into the legal landscape in Alabama. A number of my plaintiff attorneys' friends would tell me that if they have a potential client who came to see them concerning a dispute, and if they saw there was an arbitration clause involved, the plaintiff's attorneys said that they weren't going to get involved with it. They just didn't think there was a possibility of successfully pursuing it through arbitration. I think that has now changed. I think attorneys are seeing that claims that have merit can be successfully maintained and resolved in arbitration, as indicated by the wide variety of matters that are being arbitrated. And I think that we're probably going to continue to see that trend in the future. Eileen, if you go to the next slide, thank you. 3 organizations, the American Arbitration Association, JAMS, and the National Arbitration Forum, are the primary organizations that administer arbitrations in the state of Alabama and across the country. The AAA, American Arbitration Association, administers most of the Alabama arbitrations, but also you may run into JAMS and National Arbitration Forum as the designated administrator as well. And Eileen, I will turn it back to you for private judging.
Thank you, Jimmy. Many of you know that in 2012, private judging was authorized by the Alabama Act 2012-266, and it was recently amended in 2018 with the Act 2018-384. And what the Act, as amended, did was it expanded the types of judges who could be considered private judges, and it included probate judges. So here at the center, we also collect data from our private judges. At the end of 2019, we had 24 active private judges registered with the center. But reported during that year, there were 7 cases that were actually referred to private judges or that were contracted with private judges, and only 6 of those tried. There was 1 pending. The types of cases reported for 2019 were predominantly domestic relations, with 1 construction case. Now, one thing I want to share with you is that this chart will show you the number of registered private judges for 2017 and 2018 was 18. And in 2019, we saw a jump to 24. You can also see in 2017 that there were 34 cases that parties had contracted with private judges to try, but only 4 of those went to trial. So it appears that and during that year that the parties settled their cases before actually going to trial. And so you can see the number of cases. In 2018, there were 4 that went to private judges with 4 trials. And as I mentioned, in 2019, there were 7 cases with 6 trials. Private judging really hasn't taken off that much in Alabama. And part of that may be due to the fact that a lot of people aren't aware of the statute or the acts. And so that information is available on our website, but you can also look in the Code of Alabama for the act, the statute itself that talks about private judging. You know, during Mediation Week, one of the things that we really wanted to help promote across the state was to let everyone know about the different types of alternative dispute resolution available. And so tomorrow, we're having a webinar with Judges Sonny Ferguson and Judge Julie Palmer, who are going to go through the who, what, when, where, and how of private judging and kind of demystify what private judging is all about. They'll also be sharing some forms to use on how to request a private judge and contract with a private judge. So I think that might help make people aware of that form of ADR, especially given the pandemic. We've seen the Supreme Court order back in March that delayed some judicial proceedings. Mediation was not included in that, and so our mediators have been working, but also private judges are available. And so if you'd like to learn more about that, we invite you to join us tomorrow at noon for a webinar.
With respect to appellate mediation, the appellate mediation offices at the Court of Civil Appeals and the Alabama Supreme Court have been collecting data on appellate mediation in Alabama since January of 2004. During that period, over 4,000 cases were screened at the Court of Civil Appeals for possible referral to mediation. Of those, 2,305 were referred to mediation. 51% of the Supreme Court cases referred to mediation during that time period settled, which nationally is a very high rate. I think the settlement rate in federal court mediation programs is closer to 35%. So I think the Appellate Mediation Office does a good job of screening cases that would be appropriate for appellate mediation, and also the mediators who handle those mediations do a good job in having a good settlement rate for appellate mediations. If you go to the next slide, please. Thank you. With respect to the Alabama Court of Civil Appeals, during the period from 2004 to 2019, 4,005 cases were screened at the Court of Civil Appeals for possible referral to mediation. Of those, a little bit over 2,300 cases were referred to mediation, and 49% of those cases actually reach settlement. So in 2019, the most recent year, 46% of the Court of Civil Appeals cases referred to appellate mediation had either full or partial settlement, which again is a very, very good number for appellate mediation settlements. And
Jimmy,
Eileen, I'll turn it to you.
great. And one of the things I like to let people know is um, to be an appellate mediator on the roster with the appellate office over at the administrative office of courts is mediators need to register with the center. Now, that's not to say that you can't hire a, a mediator who's not registered. You can hire a mediator who's not registered with the center to handle your appellate case. But when they're screening over at the appellate office, certain cases or the cases, they are using those that are on their roster. So now I'd like to talk a little bit about one thing that makes my heart very happy, and that's pro bono mediation. In 2014, we witnessed the first statewide mediation programs in family law as well as in foreclosure prevention. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about those programs with you. And again, you may or may not be familiar with them, but they might help your clients. And I think that's why it's important that we're aware of these. They're just examples of how mediation can help a broad number of Alabama citizens sharing common issues move forward with their lives. And so they're, one of the things that we ask our mediators who are registered with the center to do is to give at least 10 hours of pro bono time if requested. Some give many more than that. We've had mediators give 100 plus hours of pro bono mediation. And so we're very grateful for their generosity. Pro bono statistics don't always get reported here to the center. This number is probably higher, but in 2019, 1,480 plus hours were donated through pro bono neutrals across the state, and that includes those that are registered with the center. But you also need to know that there are district court mediation programs throughout the state, as well as law school clinical mediation programs. And the number of hours that these professionals are giving has a value. And so, according to Taproot, it's valued at $150 an hour for pro bono work, and that comes to just over $222,127 in value. So we're very grateful for their generosity. The first program I really want to talk about is the Parents Are Forever Family Mediation Program. This program began in 2013. It initially started out as a pilot program in certain counties, but it has expanded so that now there are 48 counties that are participating in this program. The map on the right kind of gives you an idea of where the heavy concentration of cases has occurred. And so where the color is darker, that's predominantly where these counties participated in the pilot program. But as you can see, a broad variety of counties have participated. We're very grateful for the courts for referring the parties to this. Under this program, the center has funding thanks to a statutory provision for pro bono services, and our funding comes to the Alabama Supreme Court. And we're very grateful to the court for this funding. We're funding initial divorces where parents have minor children involved. The parents agree to work with a family mediator to develop a parenting plan and a financial plan. It is court-ordered mediation. So any mediated agreement is sent to the judge for judicial review. The mediators that participate in this program must be registered with the Alabama Center for Dispute Resolution, and they must have completed the 40-hour divorce and family mediation course. We also, in any type of court-ordered mediation, the mediators have to screen for domestic violence or family violence. And if they discover that there is evidence of that, then the mediation must be conducted by a mediator who's had the 14-hour domestic violence mediation training. The family income has to be less than $60,000. And even under this program, the mediators must give pro bono time. So the mediation doesn't cost the family anything. The center handles the financials, and so our mediators submit an invoice to the center. And the way the mediators get paid is they'll get compensated for no more than 8 hours of work on the case, and they also must give pro bono time. So the rate that we're currently using to pay the mediators is for 1 to 4 hours of mediation services. They're compensated at $150 an hour. And then for any time over 4 hours up to the cap of 8 hours, that is actually reduced to $125 an hour. So we're very grateful for the support of our family mediators who participate in this program. Very grateful to the courts for helping Alabama families. Just in 2019, 105 families participated in this program, and that is they were ordered to the Parents Are Forever Family Mediation Program. You can see on the slide that the average family income was $38,439, and there were 161 children benefited. Out of the 105, there were 69 agreements reached for a 65.7% settlement rate. There were 8 partial agreements and 28 with no agreement reached. And the mediators gave 92.15 hours of pro bono time. This chart shows you when the program started to September 30th of this year. And I think it's a good chart to take a look at. We've had 904 families referred by the court to participate under the Parents Are Forever Family Mediation Program. Now, not all of those cases mediated. And so the statistics that you see here represent the 733 cases that actually mediated. 70.1% settled, 6.4% reached partial agreement, and 23.5% reached no agreement. But we're having a pretty good settlement rate. And what this does is it helps families work with a trained mediator to move on and to get the best result for their children. It also helps the court with their dockets. And so the next few slides that I want to spend some time on talking with you about are essentially the qualities that we look for in mediation and from our mediators. You know, we've been collecting data since 2013 on this program, but in 2017, we decided to collect data from the parents because, you know, we can show you statistics of cases that settled and didn't settle and partially settled and how many families actually participate in the program. But one of the things that we realized that we needed to do was to ask the parents themselves what they thought of the program. And so we started collecting data on that, and the feedback has been overwhelmingly positive. One of the questions that we asked them is, was the mediation process explained at the start? Now I want to note that on the legend itself, red and blue are good colors. Typically, we tend to think of red as not a good color, but the blue represents strongly agree, and the red represents agree. And overwhelmingly, you can see that the process was explained to them by the mediators. We also ask if the information given to the parent was clear and easy to understand. Again, overwhelmingly positive. We asked them if the service was timely, and again, overwhelmingly positive. You know, looking back at the 2019 statistics, it appears that the average time that it took for a case from start to mediation was about 8 months. We're starting to, I think, this year see that it might be less than that because we're seeing more of an interest of courts across the state using and referring parents to this program. We do ask about confidentiality, as this slide asks. I felt comfortable that confidentiality was respected at all times, and again, overwhelmingly positive. There's several qualities that we ask the parents to rate the mediator on. We asked them if they thought the mediator was impartial, if the mediator made them feel relaxed and comfortable, if the mediator helped to identify and consider a number of constructive options, the mediator listened carefully, if the mediator remained calm and professional. And while this chart shows some variations between the bars, I would ask you not to get too hung up on the differences between those, because we had 188 respond at the top as the max rating, but there's only a 7 survey difference between the lowest rating. So overwhelmingly, the mediators are doing a great job. We also ask the parents that after the mediation, if their understanding of the other person has improved. And this is where we start to see some variations. But again, overwhelmingly, we see that the majority indicate that they strongly agree or agree. We asked them if they were given enough support to express their views. Again, blue and red are great colors, very positive results. We asked them if, in their opinion, the agreement reached was fair to me. Overwhelmingly positive again. We asked, in their opinion, if the agreement reached was fair to the other party. And again, overwhelmingly positive. And finally, we asked them if they think the mediation program offers a good service to families. And this again was predominantly strongly agree and agree. I want to share with you some comments that the parents provided to us. We asked them in the feedback, we asked them what did they like best about the mediation. We also asked them what they liked least about the mediation, but here are the comments that they provided about what they liked best about the mediation. They said the mediator made things easy to understand and talk through the options with me that would help the situation come to a peaceful end. The mediator was impatient and impartial. The fact that this is offered to low-income families is a great help. I feel a conclusion was reached more peacefully because of it. The environment of calm and respect to both parties and the patience she had to hear attentively to both of us to get the best result for our kids. And finally, the last comment I'll share is I recommend this. It's better than court. The comments that I've shared with you on this slide are indicative of the other comments that we received that pretty much echo what you see here on the slide. It is a great stress reducer for the parents to be able to resolve their dispute without having to go before a judge. And, the nice thing about mediation is, as opposed to court, is that the parents have someone who has time to listen to them. And you don't always get to tell your story in court, but in mediation, the parents do. And so mediators and mediation offer this. A second program that we offer is the Foreclosure Prevention Mediation Program. And essentially, this program helps homeowners who are at risk of foreclosure. It was initially funded in 2016 by the Alabama Law Foundation and the Alabama Civil Justice Foundation. And it is court-ordered mediation. So now a homeowner doesn't have to be in foreclosure. They could be at risk of foreclosure, or they may have a consumer debt that might jeopardize their ability to make a home payment or a house payment. And so if you find yourself in that situation, this may be an option for you to help your clients. So we have partnered here at the center with the Alabama State Bar Volunteer Lawyers Program. Linda Lund does a great job, and she and her staff conduct the initial screening intake. So if you have a case that you think might be appropriate for this, we encourage you to contact the Alabama State Bar Volunteer Lawyers Program. The number that you see here of 334-517-2246 is Linda Lund's direct line. Linda's going to screen for eligibility. This program, the threshold for assistance is at 250% of the federal poverty level. And if they meet the eligibility requirements, then the homeowner will be referred to a registered foreclosure mediator on the roster if they qualify. Now, in the past, people have asked me what is the federal poverty level and the threshold level, and it's very hard for me to just throw out one number, so I prepared a chart to show you that. This is based on the 2020 federal poverty level guidelines. It does exclude Alaska and Hawaii, but these guidelines are published by the Department of Health and Human Services. And so it varies depending on your household size. And the column shows you what they consider to be 100% of federal poverty level. And then the column on the right talks about what the 250% federal poverty level indicator is. So if you have a client who might be eligible for this program or you might think benefit from it, I encourage you to contact Linda Lund at the Alabama State Bar Volunteer Lawyers Program. We've trained 25 foreclosure mediators in 2016. There was special training that was provided to them. Since this program started back in 2016, 50 cases have been referred to a mediation under this program. If you'd like to learn more about it, you can visit our website at alabamaadr.org. And under for the public, there is some more information about that. We have on our website also a sample order to mediation that the judges use. And typically every year I send a letter to the judges to make them aware of our pro bono mediation programs, both the family mediation program and the foreclosure mediation program. The third area I want to talk about is something that we began working with the Administrative Office of Courts Family Division. It's called the Access and Visitation Program. The purpose of this program is to help increase non-custodial parents' visitation and access with their children. Now, this program is awarded to subgrantees. And so there's a Children's Advisory Committee that actually considers the submits a request for proposal and receives the applications, and they select agencies to award funding under this program. And so from October of 2018 to September 2019, 7 agencies in 16 counties provided services. And their services included mediation, parenting education, helping parents develop a parenting plan, providing a neutral drop-off and pickup location, offering supervised visitation and visitation enforcement. And the program has been a success. Just from that one fiscal year in 2018, 404 persons were served, which included 101 non-custodial fathers and 47 non-custodial mothers. And we collect feedback from them as well. And 73% of the non-custodial fathers and 55% of the non-custodial mothers reported increased access and visitation time with their children. Now, when we talk about trends in Alabama, one of the things I'd like to share with you is that at the center, we are a resource to you all. We're a resource to the courts and to the public and to schools. We collaborate with our fellow state agencies, as well as my counterparts in the Southeast, and we conduct training. And we will come to your local county bar association, or now that we're during this period of the pandemic, we can conduct an ADR update for you virtually. And so the center also, when it was established, is a clearinghouse for ADR training. And we maintain a training calendar of events that you can search on our website. But last year in 2019, the center sponsored or co-sponsored 33 events with 856 participants. In Alabama, there are 2 primary trainers for mediation training that have been approved by the center to meet the roster registration requirements. The roster registration requirements are set forth by the Alabama Supreme Court Commission on Dispute Resolution. And so in Alabama, we have Mediation CLE and Alabama Mediation Training. Now, Mediation CLE has also been known as Mediation Media, but they recently changed their name within the past year. Mediation CLE conducts training in a variety of areas, including civil mediation as well as divorce and family mediation. And last year, they offered over $58,000 in mediation training scholarships, discounts, and free trainings to over 188 mediators. You can see the number of attendees that they trained in 2019. Alabama Mediation Training is no longer the new kid on the block, but they began their program last fall. And in 2019, they trained 49 mediators in civil mediation classes. Their courses for both Mediation CLE and Alabama Mediation Training are on the center's training calendar. You can see what a training calendar looks like by looking at the lower right of your screen. But one of the things that we consider to be really important for laying a great foundation for our mediators is that all classes are in person in a classroom setting. They're not conducted virtually. And when I say that, I mean the 20-hour general civil mediation class, as well as the 40-hour divorce and family mediation class. So you probably noticed earlier this year during the pandemic at the beginning that mediation classes were rescheduled. Alabama Mediation Training resumed their in-person classes in June, and Mediation CLE began their in-classroom courses again in August. And I'm hearing great feedback from them because I checked with them to see what the impact was on their classes and their registrations, and the courses are filling up. If you're interested in learning to become a mediator, I highly encourage you to take a course from one of these two providers because they lay a great foundation. And I also want to say that to reiterate that the majority of the registered mediators with the center have been trained through these programs. And I think it's very remarkable that the center has been in existence for going on 26 years. And during that 26-year period, we've only had 4 complaints made against registered neutrals, and that's pretty phenomenal. So I think that our trained mediators take mediation seriously and are doing a great job. Now we want to shift our attention just a little bit to talk about online dispute resolution and even ADR during the pandemic. Here at the center, everyone has had to adapt. And one of the things that I'm a big proponent of is ensuring our registered neutrals have the skills and abilities to be successful in what they do. And so if you visit our website and even our Facebook page, you'll see that the center has collaborated with the American Bar Association Dispute Resolution section. And especially during the pandemic, the ABA noted that online dispute resolution tools and resources need to be available to the public. And so they made these resources available, podcasts, materials for free. And so if you visit our website and our Facebook page, you'll see links to those. If you read our newsletter, which we have published back in April, and we just recently posted one in October, there are resources available where you can learn, if you're a mediator, how to conduct Zoom mediations through various tutorials as well as articles. But even if you're not a mediator and you're a lawyer representing a party in a mediation, how you can prepare your client and yourself for an online dispute resolution experience and how to get a good experience out of that. I think that's really important for us as neutrals and as attorneys, that we maintain our professional competence to be able to assist our clients and help them get the justice that they are seeking. And ODR offers an opportunity to do that, especially now with the courts reopening and starting to resume cases and setting priorities. ODR is a great avenue for you to consider in your representation of clients. But one of the things that we have also learned through ODR, and as some of you may have noticed through some of our webinars that we've been conducting, is that you have to be flexible and with technology, because technology is an instrument that we can use in our practice, but you really have to practice with it and be prepared. But also during online dispute resolution, you know, one of the tenets that we really highlight, and I think the backbone of mediation, is confidentiality and maintaining that. And so neutrals need to ensure that all the parties and their attorneys are aware of privacy and confidentiality issues, and also to ensure that no recording is made in any form or capacity of a mediation session. And you can note through the Alabama Civil Court mediation rules, it provides that there is no record kept of the mediation, and that includes recording. But so everyone needs to be familiar with that. Jimmy, I'd like to hand it off to you. I think I've been talking quite a bit here, but I know that you've had some experience during the pandemic with mediations and arbitrations. We'd like to hear from you.
Thank you, Eileen. As a matter of fact, really the way I self-taught myself to handle online dispute resolutions was through the resources that the ABA provides and that the center links to in its website. There are several very good tutorials on using Zoom and other products and best practices, both for mediations and for arbitration. So I just second what Eileen just said as far as the resources that are available through the ABA and on the Alabama Center for Dispute Resolution's website. With respect to mediations, I have found that virtual mediations are almost as effective, perhaps as effective as in-person mediations. You're able through Zoom to separate the parties out into breakout rooms where the attorney on one side and his or her client, attorney on the other side and his or her client can be in separate virtual conference rooms, and the mediator can switch back between the two as the mediation progresses, and can also bring the parties back together into one Zoom room as need be. So I've found that basically we don't miss a beat with Zoom mediations as compared to in-person mediations. And I think to some extent, clients might be a little bit more comfortable with virtual mediations because they don't have to come into a law office or into an office building or some other setting where they may be uncomfortable. They may be more comfortable being in front of a monitor at their lawyer's office or some other location. So I think that mediations are being very effectively handled through Zoom, and particularly with parties being in different parts of the state and different parts of the country. I think even after this pandemic is over, we're going to still see a large number of virtual mediations. One of the pointers I would make is to get with the attorney. If you're the mediator, I think it's very important to have a practice run with the attorneys, either separately or everybody together, a day or two before the mediation, to make sure that the technology works for everybody, to make sure you don't have any connection issues. One of my very first virtual mediations, we had about a 30 or 40-minute delay in trying to get somebody's technology working correctly and to get everybody off of the mute, and it just works a lot better if you have a practice run beforehand to make sure that everybody's ready to go when the mediation starts. I've also served as an arbitrator in a virtual arbitration where I was here in Montgomery in my office, and the parties were, I think one of them was in Illinois and one of them was in Michigan, along with their respective attorneys. And it worked very well. We had 2 or 3 witnesses who testified. In the arbitration setting, it's common for the organization administering the arbitration, either the American Arbitration Association or JAMS or National Arbitration Foundation, to have a third party provider act as the outlet for providing the technical services to the parties, and that was very effective, and it allowed the parties to participate without worrying about technology on their end, allowed me to participate as the arbitrator without having to worry about handling the Zoom arrangements and breakout rooms. And again, the third-party service provider had a practice run with all of the parties and all of the witnesses several days prior to the arbitration, which allowed us to work out any kinks before the actual day of the arbitration. So I think that's virtually required with respect to both mediations and arbitrations in using technology. Now, Eileen, I'll turn it back to you.
Okay, great. I think those are some great ideas and suggestions, practice, and that in arbitration that the major networks are able to provide that. The other thing I want to share with you, speaking on that, is back in September, we had a webinar on how to get the best experience from online mediation. That program is available at the Alabama State Bar's on-demand CLE program, but that webinar was recorded and is now posted on the Alabama Center for Dispute Resolution's website if you're interested in getting access to that. The part of the purpose for that was to help attorneys get the most out of an online mediation experience, as well as to prepare their clients too. So I invite you to visit our website at www.alabamaadr.org. There is a resource tab, and one of the things that you can find there is a PDF document that's entitled Things We Know About Mediation in Alabama from Cases That Have Ended Up in Appellate Courts. And so you'll find a 2-page summary, as well as probably a 12 or 13-page more detailed explanation and synopsis of the cases that are associated with that. So that's a resource that's available. We also have ethics opinions that have been issued by the commission, and we do have some previous recorded webinars on collaborative practice of law, which is another form of alternative dispute resolution that is fairly new to the state. So I invite you to take advantage of that. At this time, we'll be happy to entertain any questions that you may have. If you have any questions, please submit them through the chat box. And we'll just monitor that for a moment. But Jimmy, I'd also like to give you the opportunity for some closing remarks.
Thank you, Eileen. Just one other thing with respect to online dispute resolution. With respect to arbitrations, as most of you probably know, in arbitration, the rules of evidence and other rules are more relaxed than they are in court. And even before the pandemic, it was common for witnesses to be allowed to testify by Skype, more recently by Zoom, by telephone. And that's certainly a tool that I think people are becoming more and more comfortable with. If you're participating in an arbitration and you have a witness who is outside of the area where the arbitration is taking place, it's certainly possible, and I think in most circumstances, the arbitrator would allow you to have those witnesses testify remotely by Skype or Zoom or even by telephone, rather than incurring the expense of those witnesses coming to the site. So that was available and widely used in arbitration prior to this year, and I think that's going to continue to become more and more the trend in the future.
Well, great. Jimmy, I think that's really some wise advice. And also, I want to let people know that if you need to get in touch with us, here is our contact information. We're not getting any questions through the chat box, but on behalf of the Alabama Center for Dispute Resolution and the Dispute Resolution section of the Alabama State Bar, Jimmy, I want to thank you for joining us today for this program. It's very informative and great suggestions and tips, and we appreciate that.